Okay, so I'm going to continue with a few verses in the Bahir, the Book of Illumination. So I think we left off with 2. So there's previous videos that go through this entire book and read the entire text. But so I'm just going to work through commentary on the verses here. So verse 3, it says, "Why does the Torah begin with the letter Bet?" So that's the second letter of the Hebrew alphabet. "In order that it begin with a blessing, baracha." So how do we know that the Torah is called a blessing? Because it is written in Deuteronomy 33:23, "The filling is God's blessing, possessing the sea in the south." The sea is nothing other than the Torah, as it is written in Job 11, verse 9. It says, "It is wider than the sea." What is the meaning of the verse? The filling is God's blessing. This means that wherever we find the letter Bet, it indicates a blessing. It is thus written in Genesis 1:1, Bereshit, so in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Bereshit is Bet Reshit. The word beginning, Reshit, is nothing other than wisdom. It is thus written in Psalm 111, verse 10, "The beginning is wisdom, the fear of God." Reshit Chochma Yirat Hashem, right? Wisdom is a blessing. It is thus written in God blessed Solomon. It is furthermore written, 1 Kings 5:26, and God gave wisdom to Solomon. This resembles a king who marries his daughter to his son. He gives her to him at the wedding and says to him, "Do with her as you desire." So here we go. If we jump to the commentary now, the first letter of the Torah is Bet. The second letter of the Hebrew alphabet is also the first letter of the word baracha, blessing, meaning blessing. When the Torah is discussed, it normally refers to the 5 books of Moses, or in a broader sense to the entire theological structure based on these books. In a Kabbalistic sense, however, the word Torah refers to the entire spiritual blueprint of creation. So it says that, God looked into the Torah. And just like this is like the way that a scribe works. So you copy things from one to the other. So you look into it, and then you make your you write the line, write the word, write the line. You look into it and you write it, right? So he's looking. He wrote the Torah. He composed the Torah before anything. He looks into it as if it's the blueprint of the world, and then he speaks it out, right? And it becomes creation. So when the Kabbalists speak of God's eminence and transcendence, they say that he fills all the worlds and surrounds all worlds. The Zohar 3:225a. The letter Bet refers to the interface between these two concepts. So and hence the name the name of the letter Bet is related to the word Bait, meaning house. So the concept thereby God fills all worlds is indicated by the word blessing. So whenever God reveals his essence in anything, he is said to bless that thing. And the verse therefore states that the filling is God's blessing. The vehicle for this blessing is nothing other than the Torah. So, and if we look, I think we have a little bit of a diagram here. So the diagram, like 2-dimensionally, if God was creating the universe, he has to withdraw himself from himself. Like he is everything, so he has to withdraw himself. That leads us some type of void. So in here it's just a dark void, and then he injects himself into it, a ray of light. So that's kind of that idea that it's the blessing. The filling is God. So anything that he fills, right? So the vehicle for this blessing is nothing other than the Torah. In order for a totally transcendental God to relate to his creation, a series of 10 sefirot, or emanations, had to be brought into existence. The first 2 of these Sefirot are Keter, crown, and Chochma, wisdom. The first Sefirah is called the crown, Keter. And Keter actually has the gematria of 620. And 620 is the 613 commandments with the 7 later revealed commandments, or rabbinically derived commandments that happened later in history, such as relating to Hanukkah and Purim and things like that. So, so Keter, Chochma, the first Sefirah is called the crown. So Keter is crown, since a crown is worn above the head. The crown therefore refers to things that are above the mind's abilities of comprehension. And that's why the tefillin, it goes right there on your head. That's like a little crown. And it actually is on the soft part of your skull, whenever a baby skull is being formed, whatever, it still has a soft spot on the skull right there, and that's supposedly a place that has very I don't know, like sixth sense type of reception and transmission, I guess you could say. So the crown, therefore, refers to two things that are above the mind's abilities of comprehension. Wisdom is therefore the first thing that the mind can grasp and is therefore called a blessing. Since Chokhmah, or wisdom, is the second sphera, it is alluded to by the second letter of the Hebrew alphabet, which is the letter Bet. Okay, continuing on, so verse 4. How do we know that the word baracha, usually translated as blessing, comes from the word baruch, meaning blessed? Perhaps it comes from the word berech, meaning knee. It is written in Isaiah 44:23, "For to me shall every knee bend." Baracha can therefore mean the place to which every knee bends. So what example does this resemble? People want to see the king, but do not know where to find his house, his bait. First they ask, where is the king's house? Only then can they ask, where is the king? It is thus written, "For to me shall every knee bend, even the highest, every tongue shall swear." So, back to the commentary, the word baracha, blessing, is closely related to the word berech, meaning knee. So just as bending the knee lowers the body, so the concept of baracha lowers God's essence so that he can relate to the universe and be comprehended through his acts. The blessing is therefore a highest comprehension of God, which is a place to which every knee bends. It is the house, the bayit, which one must seek out before he can find the king. This, again, alludes to the sphirot of Chokhmah, or wisdom, which is represented by the letter Bet. So an important concept here, which shall be encountered many times in the Kabbalistic idea, that before there is an awakening from on high, there must first be an awakening from below. That is, before any spiritual sustenance is granted, there must first be some effort on the part of the recipient. This is closely related to the concept that every recipient of God's light must also be a giver, as discussed in number 2. The recipient of God's light must also be a giver, as discussed in 2. Okay, so the word blessing primarily refers to sustenance given as a result of awakening from below. The primary means of such awakening is the Torah and its commandments. Okay, so back to the text, verse 5, or Siman 5, I'm sorry. Rabbi Ruhamai sat and expounded. What is the meaning of the verse? Deuteronomy 33:23, it says, "The filling is God's blessing, possessing the sea in the south." This means that wherever we find the letter Bet, it is blessed. This is the filling referred to in the verse. The filling is God's blessing. From here, it nourishes those who need it. It was from this filling that God sought advice. What example does this resemble? A king wanted to build his palace among great cliffs. He mined into the bedrock and uncovered a great spring of living water. The king then said, "Since I have flowing water, I will plant a garden. Then I will delight in it, and so will all the world." It is therefore written in Proverbs 8:30. It says, "I was with him as a craftsman. I was his delight for a day frolicking before him at every time." So the Torah is saying, for 2,000 years I was in the bosom of the blessed Holy One as his delight. The verse therefore says, a day, right? It's repeated. Each day of the blessed Holy One is 1,000 years, as it is written in Psalm 90, verse 4. 1,000 years in your eyes is but yesterday when it is past. From then on, it is at times, as the verse states, frolicking before him at every time. The rest is for the world. It is thus written in Isaiah 48, verse 9, "I will breathe out my praise through my nose for you." What is the meaning of my praise? It is, as it is written in Psalm 145, verse 2, a psalm of David. "I will raise you high, my God, O King, and I will bless your name for the world and forever." Why is this a praise? Because I will raise you high. And what is this elevation? Because I will bless your name for the world and forever. Okay, so back to the commentary. Here Rabbi Ruhamai explains that the Sefirot, Chokhmah, wisdom, represented by the Bet, is the transition between God's transcendence and his immanence. It not only surrounds, but is also the filling. Wisdom is the conduit of God's essence, and it therefore sustains all things. As the link between the Creator and creation, it is the vehicle containing the potential for all things. The Talmud thus says, "Who has wisdom? He who sees the unborn." Tamid 32, verse A. Chokhmah, wisdom, is the concept through which God initially preserved all creation. It therefore parallels the eyes and is hence said to have given him advice. This is alluded to in a midrash, which states that God sought advice from the Torah before he created the world. Perkei Rabbi Eliezer 3. It has already been stated that the Torah is likened to the sea. The Torah is represented by water since it flows from the highest spiritual sources to infuse the lowest spiritual levels, and even the physical world, which is beneath them all. Here, however, the analogy is used in a different sense, and the Torah is likened to a spring of water flowing from bedrock. The bedrock represents the power of tzimtzum, or constriction, which was that diagram I showed earlier, which holds back the divine light. As discussed in the introduction, after the process of tzimtzum, a thread of light was drawn into the vacated space, or the dark space there. This thread of light is the spring. In order to hold something, a vessel has to be able to prevent it from flowing, right? So a sieve cannot hold water. The same force that acts as a vessel to hold God's light, therefore, also serves to hold it back and constrict it. This is the concept of bohu, as discussed in 2, verse 2, or Siman 2. It is here represented as a rock, and the scripture likewise speaks of stones of bohu, Isaiah 34:11. So of the 10 sefirot, the last 7 correspond to the 7 days of the week. These inferior 7 are called attributes, or midot. So midot can be like attributes, but it can also mean structure too, right? Above these 7 are the 3 superior sefirot, called mentalities, or mochin, consisting of keter, crown, chokhmah, wisdom, and bina, understanding. Right? The Torah stems from God's wisdom and is therefore 2 levels above the inferior 7. It is therefore said that the Torah was created 2 days before the 7 days of creation. In the Kabbalah, the following parallels are found. Okay, so there's the name of God is spelled Yod, He, Vav, and He, right? And then we have Atzilut is the highest realm. Like we're talking about the 4 realms of the universe, or even the spiritual world. That includes the spiritual world. So Atzilut is the highest, Bariya, Yitzira, and Asiya. So we live in the world of Asiya, right? The angels are in the world of Yitzira, and that's also a world of confusion, right? Because it's hard to differentiate between truth and falsehood in that mix, right? And then as far as like the organs that we have of senses, we have the highest would be eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. And it actually goes this way. Our eyes are above our ears are above our nose, and our nose is above our mouth, right? So we have, like I said, Yod, He, Vav, and He. And then we have Atzilut, Bariya, Yitzira, Asiya. And we have eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. And then we have thousands, hundreds, tens, and ones, right? And then we have Chokhmah, Bina, the next 6 sefirot, and then the bottom sefirot is Malchut, kingship. Okay, these 4 levels thus correspond to the 4 letters of the Tetragrammaton, which I said was the Yod, He, Vav, and He. And it's interesting because if you have the name of God spelled out vertically, like some of the ancient religions, or not religion, I mean like like Sumerian writing, like it's written top to bottom, top to bottom, top to bottom in columns. So if you write the name of God that way, it actually appears like the form of a man, with the Yod is like the head, the He is like your arms, Vav is like your torso, and then the other He is like your legs, right? So they also correspond to the 4 universes. Atzilut, like I said, is the highest. That's nearness, meaning the nearness to God. That's the universe of the Sefirot, or Bariya, which is creation. The universe of the souls and the throne, right? So that's where everything originates, is in Bariya, right? All of creation. But then below that is Yitzira, formation, the universe of angels, right? And all that type of thing. They don't exist. Very few things exist in those higher realms, but that more exist in the lower realms, right? So, and then you have the universe of Asiya, which is where we live, the action or the making, right? The physical universe and its spiritual shadow, right? Since the level of Chokhmah, or wisdom, is that of thousands, each day becomes 1,000 years. It is also the level of the eyes. It is therefore written 1,000 years in your eyes, right? That's what the verse says. When it reached the level of the 6 days of creation, it is then breathed through the nose, right? So as discussed above, before any blessing or sustenance is granted, there must first be an awakening from below. So David therefore says, that when he exalts God, his name is also blessed, and that is brought down to shine on all of creation. Okay, the word praise, or tehillah, represents the sephira of Malchut. So that's the lower sephirot, right? Which is the lowest of the sephira and the ultimate recipient and vessel, right? This sephira is also related to David, who initiated the concept of kingship in Israel. It is through this attribute that God is called king, and the verse therefore states, "I will raise you high, my God, O king." God's purpose in creation was that he should give his good to his handiwork. When this purpose is fulfilled, and through awakening from below, God's purpose is fulfilled. As it were, he is elevated. So I'm going to jump back over to Siman 6. So what is a blessing? It can be explained with an example. A king planted trees in his garden and may rain and water them. And the ground may be wet and provide them with moisture, but still he must water them from the spring. It is thus written in Psalm 111, verse 10, "The beginning is wisdom, the fear of God, good intelligence to all who do them. His praise endures forever." That's that whole verse. So you may think that it lacks something. It is therefore written, "His praise endures forever." So back in the commentary, it says, the example here stresses the awakening from below, involved in the concept of blessing. Rain coming from above represents God's sustenance that descends from the aspect in which he surrounds all worlds. The wetness of the ground is that which comes from the aspect where he fills all worlds. Still water must also come from below, from the spring. This alludes to the fact that the awakening from below is primarily through the Torah. This is also the concept of praise, which begins from the bottom with kingship and ascends upward. So, and it's interesting, it's talking there about the spring, and we all know that the spring, well, maybe we don't all know, but the spring is related to the concept of the mikvah, the gathering of waters, and the spring is connected to all the waters in the earth. So if you really think about that concept, it will really blow your mind, that if you get into a spring, you're actually tapping into all the waters of the earth. And it's one of the most purest forces that there is. And water water is very interesting because it's a separate world, right? There's the world of the sky where the birds and creatures like that fly around. There's the world here of the hayot, the more of like the beast and things like that, the living creatures that are on land. And then there's the world of water, which, the birds can't even live in, the animals can't even live in, but like only the water, right? They breathe entirely differently in the water. And there's also the verse that, Hashem's voice is upon the waters, right? And there's a separation there between all of that. And it's that separation allows a significant disconnect from what happens in the world. This is why the mikveh is used for purification purposes, for all types of things. It's because it creates bitul, or like a nullification of the whatever goes into it. So we have this concept in Judaism of the 1 in 60th. So if there's something that's 1 in 60th or more diluted than that, then it becomes nullified, right? So we separate meat and dairy, but let's say you had a potato soup with milk in it, right? You had some kind of potato soup with milk in it, and something got into that that wasn't supposed to be in there. The question is, what got into that? Is it 1 in 60th or less quantity? If that's the case, then it becomes nullified. That's why, whenever the amount of water that it takes to make a mikveh, if you're making an artificial one, is the quantity of water compared to the size of the average body makes the body nullified in the water, like 1 in 60th. So these are the kind of concepts that are, kind of contained inside of these things. So again, if there's a affiliate link for this book in the description. It's a very interesting book. It's not deep, very weird mystical. I mean, this stuff is it's basically going through more traditional Judaism. It's not like some Kabbalah Center thing, but There we go. Well, have a good night.